The house was still mine. That spring, sitting on the porch glider my wife painted the summer before she got sick, I finally let myself believe it. The coffee had gone cold in my hand. I did not mind. The roses she planted by the steps were coming back red along the rail, the way they did every May, whether anyone deserved them or not. A crayon drawing was taped to the storm door. A yellow house, a brown dog, 3 stick people, and a smaller one, all holding hands. My granddaughter drew it. She spelled my name with the R backward. I left it up all winter. It was a good morning. It had cost me something I never wanted to spend to get to it. It cost me my daughter. Not all of her. Enough of her that I still feel the missing part on quiet mornings like a tooth that came out clean. But I am getting ahead of myself. The first time I saw the sign, I thought it belonged to the neighbors. A red and white real estate sign standing in green grass early on a Tuesday. I was coming back from the diner with a sausage biscuit going cold in a paper bag, and I slowed the truck the way you slow for anything out of place on a county road. Then I saw it was standing in my yard, my grass, 20 feet from the steps where the roses grow. I sat in the truck a while, the engine ticking, the dog in the passenger seat watching me the way he does. I did not know yet what the sign meant. I only knew I had not put it there. Let me back up and tell you who I am, so the rest of it lands the way it landed on me. I am Roland Pruitt, 69 years old, retired, widower. I spent 40 years on the Ross County Road and Bridge crew, right here in southern Ohio, running a grader and a backhoe and every hard-mouthed piece of equipment the county could afford. I know every culvert between here and Chillicothe by the sound the tires make going over it. I know which hills hold ice into April and which creek will jump its bank if you get 2 inches of rain in a night. That is not a small kind of knowing. It kept people alive on roads they never thought about. I was proud of it. I still am. I bought the house on Sedge Hollow Road in 1983. 26 years old, newly married, a deed with one name on it because that is how the bank did it then, and neither of us thought twice. Nadine and I raised 2 children in it, a son, Dale, born the same year we signed the papers, a daughter, Sabrina, 3 years after. We buried a dog under the maple and planted the roses the spring Sabrina started school. Nadine died 2.5 years ago, in the spring, when the roses were just budding. One morning she was telling me to keep my appointment with the eye doctor, and by the next spring she was a name on a stone and a glider I could not sit in for a year. She left me instructions, the way she left me everything, plainly and without fuss. Keep the roses, Roland, she told me near the end. Everything else can go, but keep the roses. So I kept the roses. I kept her reading glasses on the windowsill where she left them. I kept her handwriting on the fuse box, little labels in her round hand. Kitchen, porch, well pump, because taking them down felt like turning off a light she might still need. The county saw a quiet old man with a truck and a dog named Rooster, and a booth he liked on Thursdays. That is all they saw. I preferred it that way. There is a peace in being underestimated. You get to keep your own counsel. You get to watch. Rooster is an old shepherd, gray in the muzzle now, who rode in the county trucks with me the last 6 years before I retired and never once learned to stay home. He sleeps under the glider these days. When Nadine was dying, he slept under her side of the bed, and he has never gone back to mine, so I sleep on her side now, which is the sort of thing you do not tell people because they do not know where to put it. The diner is called the Hollow Cup, and it has had the same coffee since the Carter years. I take the second booth on the left. The waitress, a girl named Renata, who is 50 if she is a day, knows I want 2 eggs over medium and dry toast, and knows not to bring the check until I have finished the paper, back when I still got the paper. 40 years I graded the road that runs past that diner. There is a satisfaction, at my age, in eating breakfast on a road you kept open. Not many men get to sit still on the exact thing they built. I did. I do. I did a lot of watching that 1.5 years. I wish I had done a little talking sooner, but grief is a slow grader. It only moves the pile a little at a time. Here is the thing about grief. It makes you sign things. Sabrina stepped in right after the funeral. I want to be fair to her. Even now, even here. In the first weeks, she was a blessing. She brought casseroles I could not taste. She sat with me when the house got loud with quiet. She answered the phone when I could not stand to hear one more person say they were sorry. Then the weeks became months, and she did not step back out. She stepped further in. She rerouted my mail to her house so she could keep an eye on the bills. She built a spreadsheet of my spending and showed it to me on her phone at the kitchen table. A little bar for groceries, a little bar for gas, a red bar for the diner because I ate breakfast out 4 days a week like I had for 40 years. "You don't have to pretend anymore, Dad," she said, closing my cabinets a different way than I keep them. "You don't have to manage everything. That's what I'm here for." I did not know I had been pretending. I thought I had been living. She took my spare key so she wouldn't have to wake me when she came by. She canceled my newspaper because I could read it online, though she knew I could not and would not. Small things, each one small enough that raising a fuss about it would have made me the difficult one. That is how it works. Not one blow. 1,000 corrections, each too small to name, until you are corrected out of your own life. Sunday dinners were the worst of it, and the best, both. Worst because Sabrina corrected me twice before the plates were down. I was holding my fork wrong. I was telling the story about the ice storm again, the one where we lost the bridge on Route 4, and she said, "Dad, you've told that one." In the voice you use on a child. Best because of Etta. Etta is my granddaughter. She was 7 that year. She has her grandmother's habit of watching a room and saying nothing and knowing everything. At those dinners, when her mother corrected me, Etta would slide the good roll, the soft one from the middle, under the table onto my knee without a word. A 7-year-old noticed what the grown-ups all agreed to pretend they did not. Her father, Trent, mostly looked at his phone. He is not a cruel man. He is a comfortable one. Cruelty at least pays attention. Comfort just lets things happen and passes the potatoes. There was a Sunday in the deep of that winter that I think about more than the others. Etta had made a card at school for Grandparents' Day. She had drawn my truck and my dog and the roses, all out of scale, the truck bigger than the house, the way children draw the things that matter most as the biggest things. She was holding it out to me across the table. "That's a lovely truck, Etta," I started to say. "Dad, don't get her started on the truck," Sabrina said, taking the card, setting it aside face down by the salt. "We're eating." And she moved on to whatever came next, and the card lay face down by the salt, and Etta looked at it, and then she looked at me, and I watched a 7-year-old learn that some things you make are not wanted at the table. I took the card home with me that night. I put it on the fuse box next to Nadine's labels. It is still there. Porch, well, pump, and a truck bigger than a house, drawn by a girl who noticed. That is how it goes. Not one blow, 1,000 small ones, each one too small to name out loud without sounding like the difficult old man. So you do not name them. You just take the card home and put it on the fuse box and wait, without knowing you are waiting, for the day the small ones add up to a sign in your yard. There was one more thing I signed. I have to tell you about it because it is the hinge the whole door swung on. The summer after Nadine died, Sabrina drove me to a lawyer's office in town. Not my lawyer, hers. She said it was routine. She said it was just in case. A durable power of attorney so she could help with paperwork if I ever could not. Her hand was on the page, one finger pointing at the line when I signed. "Just in case, Dad," she said. "It doesn't change anything." I signed because I was tired. I want you to hear the difference, because it took me too long to hear it myself. Tired is not the same as willing. I was not agreeing to hand her my life. I was agreeing to stop being asked about it for one afternoon. I told myself she meant well. I told myself that for a year and a half. I told myself that right up until the Tuesday with the sign in the yard. I did not go inside swinging. I want that on the record. I have graded roads in ice storms. You learn early what a slope will do before you commit the blade. Commit too fast and the whole hill comes down on you. So I did not slam the door. I sat at the hedge where the lilacs blocked the front window, and I listened because the window was open and the morning was still. There were 2 voices, Sabrina's, and a woman's I did not know, brisk and bright, the voice of somebody being paid by the hour to be cheerful. "The property has good bones," the woman was saying. "We'll want it cleared out, of course. The recliner, the personal items. She meant Nadine's glasses on the sill. She meant the fuse box labels. She meant me. That's handled, Sabrina said. Don't worry about my father. He's not going to be a problem. Dad signs whatever I slide over. He won't even read it. I have been called a lot of things at my own table over the years. Old-fashioned, slow, behind the times. I took most of them because most of them were said by people I love, and love earns you a certain amount of slack. I had never been called a problem to be managed out of my own front door. I stood at that hedge and I felt something go very still in me. Not hot, cold. The cold, clear feeling you get at the top of a grade when the ice is worse than they told you, and you understand, all at once, exactly what you are dealing with. I did not go in. I backed to the truck. My hands were not quite steady on the wheel, and I noticed that, and I waited until they were. Then I drove to the diner to think, because a man should not make a decision that will change a family while his hands are shaking. No shouting, no scene, just an old man in a booth with a cold sausage biscuit, deciding to stop being tired and start being careful. That was the morning it turned. I had two people I trusted to think out loud with. I went to both. The first was Buck Aldenmeyer. Buck ran the road crew for 30 years before me under him for 15 of them. He is 71 now, hands like catcher's mitts, and he has buried a wife too. We meet at the diner most Thursdays and argue about nothing, which is what old friends do instead of saying they are glad to still be here. I told him. All of it. The sign, the woman, the line about signing whatever she slid over. Buck did not get angry for me, which I appreciated. Angry is easy. Angry is cheap. He just wrapped both hands around his coffee and looked at me a while. You've got two roads, Roland, he said. You can go home and yell at her and lose her. Or you can fix the ground under your own feet and keep the door open. Only one of those you can undo later. Which one did you do? I asked him. With your boy. He was quiet a long moment. The first one, he said. I'm still paying for it. Take the other road, Raleigh. Trust me, it's the one you can grade back if you're wrong. She's not a bad girl, Buck, I said. I do not know why it mattered to me that he understand that, but it did. She got scared and greedy and she talked herself into something. That's not the same as bad. No, Buck said. It isn't. And the road you take now decides which one she gets to become. You come in hot, you make her the villain, and people who get made the villain tend to go on and play the part. You keep the door open, you leave her room to be the daughter again. Cost you nothing but your pride to leave the door open. He drank his coffee. And Raleigh, at our age, pride is about the only thing we've got too much of. That is the thing about Buck. He never once raised the blade in anger in 30 years on the county. Neither did I. We took pride in a road that looked like nobody had touched it. That is the whole art of it. You want people to drive it and never know the work. The second person was Hollis Vandergriff, an estate attorney in town, recommended by Buck, no relation to Sabrina's lawyer, and no friend of him either. I made an appointment under my own name and drove myself. Hollis is a careful man, mid-50s, the kind who reads the whole page before he tells you what is on it. He pulled the county records while I sat there. The deed from 1983 came up on his screen. Roland, he said, turning it toward me, the deed to your house has one name on it, yours. It has never had another. Not your late wife's, not your daughter's. Yours alone. But I signed the power of attorney, I said. She has that. She has the right to act for you on paperwork, Hollis said. She does not have the house. The power of attorney is a key you gave her to your affairs. It is not a deed. It does not make anything hers. And Roland. He set down his pen. You can revoke it. Any day you like, you can take the key back. I sat with that. I had signed away my confidence in that lawyer's office 2 summers before. I had handed a tired man's key to a daughter who called it just in case. But I had not signed away my house. There is a difference between those two things, and it turned out the difference had a filing fee of $42 at the county recorder's office. Let the facts do the work, Nadine used to say, usually about an argument I was itching to win the loud way. I could hear her saying it in Hollis's office as clear as if she were in the chair beside me. I decided to let them. What I did next was not a scheme. I want to be careful about that word, because the whole shape of this story depends on it. I did not set a trap. I did not plot a humiliation. I did housekeeping. I fixed a gate that had been swinging loose all winter. Hollis drew up a revocation of the power of attorney. I signed it, notarized it, and recorded it at the county the same afternoon, with the deed clerk I have known since she was in high school. We mailed certified copies to Sabrina, to my bank, and because Hollis is thorough, to every title company in the county, so that if a sale was in motion anywhere, the ground would already be solid under my feet. The deed clerk at the county recorder is a woman named Priscilla, who I have known since she wore a marching band uniform, and she stamped my revocation without asking a single question, because in a small county, a stamp is a private thing and everyone knows it. $42. She slid the receipt across the counter and looked at me over her glasses and said, "You take care of yourself, mister." Pruitt, in a voice that told me she had already guessed most of it, and I thanked her and did not fill in the rest, because there was no need. In a small county, the ground already knows. It is a strange feeling, taking back a key you never should have handed over. It did not feel like revenge. It felt like the morning after an ice storm when you finally get the blade out and clear the road and the county opens back up. Necessary, overdue, quiet. Then I did the one hard part. I called Dale. My son and I are not talkers. We are two men who fix things side by side and call it a relationship, and it has served us fine. But I called him and I told him the truth, the whole of it, the sign and the woman in the line. He was quiet a long time on the phone. Then he said something that put the first crack in the story his sister had built. "Dad," he said, "she told me you asked her to sell it. She told all of us that. She said it was your idea, that you couldn't handle the place anymore and you wanted it done before winter." "I never said that," I told him. "I know," Dale said. "I know that now. I'm sorry I believed it. It was easier to believe than to drive over and ask you myself." "You were busy," I said, because I did not want him carrying it. "Everybody's busy, Dad," he said. "Busy is just the word we use for the thing we didn't want to look at. I should have looked." He was quiet, and then he said the thing that told me I had my son back. "You want me there Friday?" "No," I told him. "I need you to stay out of it, so nobody can ever say the men in the family ganged up on her. This has to be me and the paper, and nobody else. But Dale, after Friday I could use you around here more." "I'll be around," he said, and he was. He is. That is how these things live, not on a big lie, on a small one that everybody finds easier to believe than to check, and that is how they die too. One person finally drives over and asks. I did one more thing, and it was the hardest to hold to. I did not tell Sabrina the ground had shifted. I let her keep planning. I let her think I was still the man who signs whatever is slid across the table. You do not tip your hand. I learned that at the kitchen table playing cards with Nadine, who cheated cheerfully for 40 years and never once got caught, because she never once let her face know what her hands were doing. I let my face stay tired. I let Sabrina set her day. She had already picked it, a closing, at the house, on a Friday. I put the deed and the tax records and the recorded revocation and the title company's number in a folder, and I put the folder in the truck, and I waited for the day my daughter had chosen. Friday came bright and cool, the way the good days come in Ohio in the fall. I drove up my own road to my own house and did not recognize my living room. She had staged it. My recliner was gone, hauled to the garage, and in its place a stiff little settee I had never seen. Nadine's glider had been moved off the porch and around the side, out of the picture. There was a bowl of lemons on the coffee table. Lemons. In a house where nobody has eaten a lemon on purpose in 60 years. Somewhere she had read that a house should smell like lemons to sell. The people were already there. That was the part that landed hardest, walking in. A couple, about my daughter's age, standing by the window being polite about the view. The realtor from the hedge, Sharon Duvall, with her bright voice and a leather folder. And a young man from the title company with a soft briefcase, a mobile notary, there to close the sale on the spot. Sabrina came at me fast and smiling. The way you heard something you do not want making its own decisions. Dad, good. You're here. She steered me by the elbow toward the stiff settee, toward a chair pulled up to the coffee table, a chair with a pen laid across a stack of paper. Just sit here. You don't have to read it. You never do. We'll be done in 20 minutes. She had staged the room so completely that she had staged me out of it. There was a chair for the man who signs whatever is slid over, a prop chair, a place for a signature attached to a body. I did not sit in it. I said hello to the couple by the window instead. Ken and Marie Osgood, it turned out, a nice pair looking for their first real house, and I felt bad for them already, because none of this was their fault, and some of it was about to fall on them. I shook Ken's hand. I shook Marie's. I asked how far they had driven. 40 minutes, they said. I told them the roses by the steps come back red every May, and asked if Marie liked roses. She said she did. I was sorry, in advance, for what I was about to do to their morning. Then I turned to the young man from the title company, the notary, the one who actually mattered in that room, and I asked him one plain question. Son, I said, whose authority are we closing under here today? He blinked. He looked at his packet. Ah, the seller is represented by power of attorney, he said. Ms. Falk holds a durable power of attorney for the owner, Mr. Pruitt. That's you, sir? That's me, I said. Do me a favor. Before anybody signs anything, I want to make one phone call, on speaker. It'll take 2 minutes and it'll save everybody a lot of grief. Sabrina's smile did not move, but her eyes did. Dad, there's no need. Everything's handled. Just sit down. 2 minutes, I said, level, not loud, never loud. I took out my phone. I dialed Hollis Vandergriff, who was waiting for the call because I had told him what day it was. I put him on speaker and set the phone on the coffee table next to the bowl of lemons. Hollis, I said, I've got a title closing here at my house. There's a notary from the title company, and my daughter and a nice couple who want to buy the place. The closing's being done under a power of attorney. Can you tell this room the status of that power of attorney? Hollis's voice came up clear off the little speaker into that lemon-scented room. Good morning, everyone, he said. My name is Hollis Vandergriff. I'm Mr. Pruitt's attorney. For the record, the durable power of attorney naming Sabrina Falk was revoked by Mr. Pruitt in the spring. The revocation was signed, notarized, and recorded with the county. Certified copies were mailed to Ms. Falk, to Mr. Pruitt's bank, and to every title company in the county, including, I would expect, the one whose notary is standing in that room. As of the spring, Ms. Falk has no authority to act for Mr. Pruitt in any matter. And I'll add, because it matters here, that the deed to the property has one owner. Roland Pruitt. It always has. Then the room went quiet in a way I have only heard a few times in my life. The quiet after the last piece of equipment shuts off on a job. The quiet in a hospital hallway. The quiet in a church. The notary was already unzipping his soft briefcase, already reaching for his own copy, already nodding because of course it had been mailed to him. It was sitting in a file he had not read closely because Sharon told him it was routine. Yes, he said, half to himself reading. There's a revocation notice in the file. It's dated. I should have. I'm sorry. I should have flagged this. Sharon Duvall turned to my daughter, and her bright voice had gone flat and careful. The voice of a woman watching her commission and possibly her license walk out the door. Sabrina, she said, you told me you had authority. You signed a listing agreement swearing you had authority. This says it was revoked in the spring. In the spring, Sabrina. The Osgoods were already gathering their coats. Ken had his hand on Marie's back. They were good people. They understood before anyone explained it that they had walked into something that was not a sale. We'll just, Ken said. We're so sorry, sir, we didn't know. You didn't do anything wrong, son, I told him. The roses are the red ones by the steps. I hope your first house has some. They left. Sharon left 10 minutes after them, on the phone with somebody at her brokerage, saying the word revoked over and over like it was a splinter she could not get out of her thumb. The notary packed his soft briefcase with his ears red and apologized to me 3 times on his way to the door. By noon, the sign was out of my yard. By noon, the lockbox was in Sabrina's purse. By noon, the listing was pulled off every website it had been posted to, gone as if it had never been, and I stood in my own living room with a bowl of lemons and my recliner still out in the garage. and my daughter was sitting at my kitchen table with nothing left to slide across it. Here is where a certain kind of story would give you the part you came for. The ruin, the sheriff. The daughter marched out in front of the neighbors. That is not what happened. That is not who Nadine raised me to be, and it is not who I raised Sabrina to be, even if she forgot it for a while and I let her. Sabrina did not apologize first. People rarely do. What came first was fear, and out of the fear came the truth, which is usually the order of it. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" she said, and her voice was shaking. "Do you have any idea what I owe? I borrowed against this. I took a second mortgage on my house against the sale of this one. Trent doesn't even know. The closing was supposed to be today. The money was supposed to be here today." There it was. Not a monster. Something smaller and far more common, and in its way, worse. She had looked at my life and decided it was a timeline she had the right to move. She had spent money she did not have against a house that was not hers, on the assumption that the tired old man would sign whatever she slid over. "You were going to leave it to us anyway," she said, and she believed it. That was the terrible part. She believed it made things even. "I just moved the timeline up. That's all I did. I moved the timeline." "Sabrina," I said, and I sat down across from her, "because you do not deliver the hard things standing over somebody. Your mother is buried under that maple. Her roses are by those steps. You did not move a timeline. You tried to sell the ground she's part of, and you told a stranger I was a problem to be handled." She started to cry then. The real kind, not the useful kind. I let her cry. I did not rush to comfort her, and I did not turn the knife. I just let a grown woman sit at her father's table and feel the full weight of a thing she had done, which is a mercy of its own, because feeling the weight is the only thing that ever changes anybody. Then I told her where the ground was. "I am not going to call the sheriff," I said. "You are my daughter. Your mother would climb out of that grave and never forgive me, and she'd be right. So there will be no charges. Hollis will make the paper quiet. The Osgoods walked away and they'll be fine. That is my mercy, and you should understand it is mercy, not weakness, because I know the difference now, even if you counted on me not knowing it." She nodded, wet-faced. "But you will never sign my name again," I said. "Not ever. Not for convenience, not for my own good, not just in case. That key is gone and it is not coming back. The house stays, and so do I. I am not a timeline. I am your father, and I am going to keep being your father in this house until they carry me out of it, feet first, and not 1 hour sooner." That is the thing about mercy. It is not the same as forgetting. I gave her the first that afternoon at my kitchen table. The second one, forgetting, or the thing past it, the real forgiving, that was going to take a long time, and it was going to be hers to earn and not mine to hand over like a soft roll under a table. She cried at my table a good while. I let her. Then I got my keys and I drove her home, because it was a 40-minute drive and her hands were shaking worse than mine had at the hedge, and because that is what a father does. You can end the sale and still drive your child home. I know that now. I did not always. The healing did not come like a flood. It came like the county coming back after a storm, one road at a time, one small chore. Hollis and I rewrote everything that fall, not out of spite, out of order. I put the house in a trust, with Etta as the one it comes to someday, and Dale as the backstop who makes sure it gets there whole. I split what money there is fairly between my children, because Sabrina is my child, and fairness is not the same as reward. But I put guardrails on it, the kind that cannot be borrowed against or slid across a table. Hollis called them the belt and the suspenders. I called them the blade and the grade. Same idea. You build the road so it holds even when the driver's tired. Dale started coming home more. He fixed the squeak in the glider that Nadine and I had both just lived with for 15 years, because that is what Dale does. He fixes the thing everybody else has decided to live with. We put my recliner back where it goes. We threw out the lemons. We moved the glider back onto the porch, and I sat in it, finally for the first time since she died, because it turned out I had needed to fight for the house before I could sit still in it. We spent a Saturday, the two of us, putting Nadine's labels back where a stager had peeled a couple loose. Kitchen, porch, well pump. Dale did not say anything about it. He just held the little tags while I found the tape, And when we were done, he stood back and looked at the fuse box a while, at his mother's round handwriting, and then he clapped me once on the shoulder and went to make coffee. Some griefs you do not talk through. You just retape them to the wall together and go make coffee. Trent came by on his own one evening that winter, without Sabrina, which surprised me. He stood on the porch and would not sit. He said he had not known about the second mortgage, that he had believed the sale was my idea because that is what he was told, and that he was ashamed he had passed the potatoes for 2 years and never once driven over to ask his own father-in-law a single question. It was the most words I had ever heard out of the man. I told him to come in out of the cold. He did. It was a start. Etta and I planted a new rose by the steps that next spring. She picked it out at the feed store, a pink one, and carried it to the register in a coffee can with both hands like it was a live thing, which it was. "Grandma's is the red one," she told me very seriously, patting the dirt down around the new one. "So this one's hers too, okay? A red one and a pink one. 2 of hers." "2 of hers," I agreed. A child hands you the future in a coffee can and looks at you to see if you will take it. You take it. Whatever it costs to still be standing there, you take it. Sabrina came around slower. I will not pretend we were mended by Christmas. We were not. For a long while she was careful with me, and I was careful with her, 2 people walking on a road they both knew had ice on it somewhere. But one afternoon in the late winter, she came by with coffee, 2 cups, no clipboard, no spreadsheet, no plan. She sat at the kitchen table where she had cried, and she did not manage anything. She just talked about Etta, about her own house, which they did not lose, though it was a near thing, about her mother finally, which we had not done, either of us, in 2.5 years. We were not healed. I want to be honest with you about that because I think you have been lied to enough by stories that tie it up. We were speaking, and for the 2 of us that winter, at that table, speaking was a cathedral. The house is still mine. I sit on the glider most mornings now, in the spring, with a coffee I let go cold on purpose because I like the excuse to stay out a little longer. The roses came back red again this May, and the pink one Etta planted came up beside them, and there are 2 of Nadine's now, just like the girl said. And it feels, for the first time since I lost her, like a home. Not a thing to be fought over. Not a property with good bones. A home. The ground I refuse to let anybody move me off of. Now let me talk to you for a minute before I let you go. If you have ever been made small at your own table, if you have ever been managed kindly by the people you raised, corrected out of your own life one small correction at a time until you looked up one Tuesday and there was a sign in your own yard you did not put there. If you have ever been so tired from grief that you signed something a tired man should never sign, hear me. You can hold your ground and still hold the door open. You do not have to choose between your dignity and your child. I was told I could only have one. It was not true. I kept both, and I am here to tell you it was the hardest grading job of my life, and the most important, and it is not too late for you to start it either. If this story meant something to you tonight, I hope you will share it with someone who may need to hear it. Somebody who is being handled right now and calling it help. And if you would, tell me in the comments about the ground you decided to keep, or the ground you wish you had. I read them. I read everyone. Thank you for spending this time with me. A house is only walls. A home is the ground you refuse to let anyone move you off of. Keep yours.